So Twitter, this is Twitter safety. Is it Twitter safety? This is like if I was writing a sketch.
I feel safer.
Disclosing networks of state-linked information operations. All right. So this is once our investigations were complete. So they got rid of a bunch of accounts on Twitter, and this is the story. This is why this happened, okay? So I just love it. So it says, today we are disclosing 4 networks of accounts of state-linked information operations, the only archive of its kind in the industry. The networks relate to independent, state-affiliated information operations that we have attributed to Armenia, Russia, and Iran. So they're banning Twitter accounts that they say are hooked up directly to foreign governments. That's what they're saying. Just those 3 places have Twitter accounts? Really? Just those 3? Why isn't England, Scotland, and the U.S.? They don't have any Twitter accounts directly? Really? I wonder why that is. It's so interesting how Twitter has no problem acting in the interest of the United States, yet won't just follow all you have to do is follow the free speech laws of the United States. That's all you have to do is follow the free speech laws of the United States, and you won't have any problem. That's all you have to do. And by the way, why did they forget China? I thought they were on our no list too. So again, if you're a state that we have a problem with, they're going to have a problem with your Twitter account. Just so you know. Once our investigations were complete, the 373 associated accounts across the 4 networks were permanently suspended from Twitter for violations of platform manipulation policy. So in other words, we decided to have a huge waste of time with a bunch of employees. That's what this is, a huge waste of time. And then here it is. It says a number of these accounts amplified narratives that were aligned with the Russian government, while another subset of the network focused on undermining faith in the NATO alliance and its stability. You are not allowed to question Oceania. You are not allowed to question Oceania. And that's what this is. So you're not allowed to undermine the faith in NATO alliance or its stability. NATO is a military alliance. They don't want anyone to undermine faith in war. So let me bring in Max Blumenthal, who was just semi-censored on Twitter for telling the truth about journalism and journalist organizations working together with intelligence operations in the UK. Max, what do you say about this latest development? It seems kind of curious that they always find accounts that are linked to governments that our government is having a problem with.
Yeah, I mean, this is further confirmation of Twitter acting as a U.S. regime propaganda site. And who carries out these attributions? I mean, first of all, look at the qualified language. It's state-affiliated independent networks. Okay, how do we know they're a network? We don't see the attribution. What does state-affiliated mean? If you actually go into the statement, right in the same sentence when they say undermining faith in the NATO alliance, they also say something like echoing Russian affiliated narratives or something. Well, like anyone can be accused of echoing a Russian, like if you oppose the U.S. proxy war in Syria, that's like echoing a Russian narrative. And then, the 3 states that are singled out, Armenia, Iran, and Russia, especially Armenia, really is the tell that they have people on the NATO side, people who are probably affiliated with the Atlantic Council, DFR Lab, which, we just talked about in the last in the last part of this discussion as a literal British state contractor. And, the Atlantic Council is funded by NATO. They're doing the attribution. Armenia was attacked by NATO. A lot of people don't understand this. Armenians were massacred with help from NATO. Basically, there was just a war in the Nagorno-Karabakh region started by Azerbaijan. It's like what you would call like contested territory. Most of the population there is Armenian. They consider it Armenia. And Azerbaijan violated a ceasefire, as far as I know, to attack it, to try to take it as part of Azerbaijan. They were the stronger military party. And who were they supported by? Erdogan's Turkey, which is a member of NATO. He brought in drones, military intelligence support, and thousands of Turkish mercenaries known as the TFSA, the Turkish Free Syrian Army. These were basically all the troops or the former moderate rebels, including members of al-Qaeda affiliated Jabhat al-Nusra. Erdogan just basically took them all, collected them, made them into a new foreign expeditionary mercenary force. He sent them into Afrin in Syria to slaughter Kurds and other people and drive them out to establish this little quote unquote buffer zone. And then he sent them over to fight in Nagorno-Karabakh, known as Artsakh by Armenians. And they won that little war that they started with NATO backing. And Armenia, which has suffered a genocide at the hands of Turkey, is now being, targeted on Twitter, along with these other states that NATO is targeting. And we don't see, however, Azerbaijani trolls, which were very present on Twitter. And talk to any journalist who was covering this war. Look at Lindsay Snell, for example, a great journalist who's done a lot of on-the-ground journalism in Syria. She's done reporting on Azerbaijan and Armenia. And, you look at her posts about the war, she was trolled by mobs of Azerbaijani trolls. Why weren't they removed? Well, I mean, it's obvious. So my overall point is this is information warfare. Twitter is intervening on behalf of NATO because it's being run by pro-NATO or directly NATO forces. They're the ones doing this attribution, and they don't want our faith in NATO to be undermined. They don't want us to think about what NATO even is or why it even exists after the Cold War.
Why does it exist?
It exists to start another Cold War, to justify its own existence and its budget, and taking away from the social spending budget of European countries, or forcing us in the U.S. to pay over 50% of its budget so those European countries can have their social democracy, and then we have to provide them with a protective umbrella in the U.S. where we have no social democracy at all. We have no health care. There's nothing here. We don't even have our phony little one-time $2,000 survival checks, but we got to send money over to NATO because of this imaginary fear of a Russian invasion, which wouldn't even be possible. Why don't we, in the United States, let Europe defend itself? Because if we do that, they'll start having better relations with Russia.
That's right.
Germany and Russia will start getting together and have a Nord Stream pipeline. And one of the greatest fears of the U.S. is Germany and Russia actually having better relations. That would alter the dynamic. A more independent Europe would alter the dynamic, and the U.S. aims to control Eurasia as it's the center of the earth, the center of our geostrategic hegemony. Sorry, I went too far on that, but that's what this whole Twitter thing is about. We're actually looking at a war. When you put those little cards up on the screen, you're looking at one part of a wider war.
Well, Fred Hampton said politics is war without bloodshed, and war is politics with bloodshed.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.